The scream cut through the pine forest like a blade. Not loud hoarse, broken, but desperate enough to stop me mid-step. I'd been tracking a wounded elk before nightfall, my rifle slung low, my mind already on the long walk back to the cabin. That cry didn't belong to any animal I knew. It carried pain, fear, and something human that made my stomach knot. I turned off the trail and followed it, branches clawing my coat, boots slipping on damp earth, until I saw her. She was on the ground near a creek, one leg caught fast in a rusted bear trap. Blood soaked the dirt beneath her calf and the iron teeth had bitten deep. Her hair was long and black, tangled with leaves. Her dress was torn and stained. An Apache woman, a widow. I would learn later, but in that moment, she was simply someone dying alone in the woods. When she saw me, she reached instinctively for a knife at her belt, then froze, strength draining from her eyes. We stared at each other, two strangers divided by history, fear, and a weapon buried in her leg. I raised my hand slowly, lowered the rifle with care, and spoke in a quiet voice, though I doubted she understood my words. Pain makes its own language. I pointed at the trap, then at her wound, then at myself, hoping she'd see help instead of harm. Her breath came shallow, and after a long moment, she released the knife and let her hand fall to the earth. That trust fragile as glass settled on my shoulders heavier than any rifle. Getting the trap off was hell. The spring was old but strong, its jaws locked tight. I used a stick for leverage, every movement careful, while she bit down on a strip of leather to keep from screaming. When the jaws finally loosened, she collapsed back, shaking, blood flowing free. I tore my shirt to bandage the wound, packed it with moss to slow the bleeding, and lifted her onto my back. She weighed less than she should have, and with every step toward my cabin, I wondered if I was carrying her to safety or to her end. The night was long. Fever took her before dawn, and she thrashed in her sleep, murmuring words I couldn't understand, tears crawling down her temples. I kept the fire low, changed the bandages, and fed her water a spoonful at a time. At one point, she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and stared at me like she was searching for something in my face, an answer. Maybe to why I hadn't left her to die. I didn't have one. By morning, the fever broke. Her eyes were clearer, though pain still lived in every breath. She studied the cabin, the rough walls, the single window, my meager supplies, then looked at me again. Slowly, she pressed her palm to her chest. "Naya," she said. Then she gestured toward me. "Eli," I answered, unsure if names meant anything between us. Still, something shifted. A line crossed. For 3 days, I nursed her. I hunted close so I wouldn't leave her long-cooked broth, cleaned the wound twice daily. The trap's damage was bad, but not mortal. On the 4th morning, I woke to the sound of horses. Not one or too many. My heart fell straight through my chest. They came from the tree line like shadows Apache warriors, faces stern, rifles and bows trained on my cabin. I stepped outside with empty hands before they could break the door down. Their leader, an older man with silver braided into his hair, spoke sharply. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the anger. They pushed past me and found her inside. Naya sat upright despite the pain, her eyes fierce now, no longer afraid. She spoke rapidly, pointing at the trap bandages, the fire, then at me. Her voice cracked once, and at that, the older man fell silent. They took me to their camp that afternoon. It's not as a guest, not bound either, something in between. I felt the weight of eyes from every side, the judgment of a people who had every reason to hate men like me. That night I slept on the ground under watch, wondering if saving one life had only shortened my own. At sunrise, the demand came. The elders stood, the camp quiet around him. His words were translated by a younger man who spoke broken English. "You freed her," he said. "You stayed. You did not run. Her husband died last winter. A widow brings danger alone. Our law is old." He paused, eyes steady. "You will take her as your wife, or you will leave these lands forever." The words hit harder than any rifle, but take her, marry her. I'd saved her life. I hadn't meant to cross into something like this. I looked at Naya, standing with Aid, her expression unreadable. She met my eyes calmly, not pleading, not afraid. I thought of the trap, the blood, the fevered night. I thought of walking away back to my empty cabin, my empty days, and leaving her to whatever fate followed a widowed woman among a grieving people. I thought of what it meant to be chosen, not out of desire, but obligation, and what it meant to refuse. "I will take her," I said finally. The words tasted of fear and resolve all at once. Life changed fast after that. I moved closer to the camp, learned their ways clumsily, earned distrust daily. Some hated me outright. Others watched, waiting for failure. Naya spoke little at first, her healing slow, her grief deeper than I'd known. At night, she cried softly when she thought I slept. I never touched her without permission. Trust. I learned grows like a wound healed, slow, painful, easy to reopen. Months passed, seasons turned. I learned her language. She learned more of mine. We shared stories by the fire, hers of lost husband and harsh winters, mine of a life shaped by solitude and regret. One night she placed her hand over mine and held it there. Nothing more. Everything changed. I never tried to be her savior. I was just the man who didn't walk away. In time, the people softened. I hunted for the elders. I fixed roofs. I listened more than I spoke. Years later, I still visit that forest trail sometimes. The bear trap is gone, rust reclaimed by earth, but I remember the scream that altered my life. I didn't save her to earn a family or a purpose, but I found both anyway. And what that taught me stays simple and heavy in my chest. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you the life you planned. And sometimes that's the only way to earn the life you were meant to live.